What if a group of experienced hikers did everything right and still met an ending so violent, so confusing, that more than 60 years later, no explanation fully satisfies what happened? What if the danger wasn't visible, wasn't expected, and didn't come from a single cause, but from something far more unsettling? This is not a story about inexperience. This is not a story about poor decisions. This is the story of the Dyatlov Pass Incident. In the winter of 1959, 9 young people set out on an expedition across the northern Ural Mountains in the Soviet Union. They were students and graduates of the Ural Polytechnic Institute, skilled hikers with strong physical conditioning and prior experience in extreme winter environments. Their leader was Igor Dyatlov, a 23-year-old engineering student known for his discipline, preparation, and calm judgment. What they planned was challenging, but not reckless. Their goal was to reach Mount Otorten, a remote and inhospitable region, earning them a high-level certification for winter trekking. From the very beginning, conditions were brutal. Temperatures dropped well below -30°C. Wind cut through layers of clothing. Visibility was often poor. Yet the group advanced steadily, documenting their journey through photographs and diary entries that would later become haunting fragments of a story cut short. These records show laughter, camaraderie, and a sense of purpose. Nothing suggests fear. Nothing suggests panic. On February 1st, 1959, the group made a decision that would later be questioned endlessly. Instead of descending into a forested area that offered natural shelter, they pitched their tent on the slope of a mountain known by the local Mansi people as Kolosyakal, a name that translates to Dead Mountain. The reason for this choice remains debated. Some believe it was to maintain altitude. Others suggest poor visibility forced them to stop early. Whatever the reason, the decision itself was not fatal. What happened afterward was, that night, something caused the group to abandon their tent in a manner that defies logic. When search teams later discovered the campsite, they found the tent partially collapsed and, most disturbingly, sliced open from the inside. This detail alone changed the entire narrative. Experienced hikers do not cut their way out of a tent unless escape is urgent and immediate. They do not leave behind boots, coats, gloves, and vital equipment in sub-zero temperatures unless the alternative feels even more dangerous. Footprints told the next part of the story. Barefoot and socked impressions led away from the tent, down the slope, toward a forest nearly a mile away. The tracks showed no signs of chaos. No running, no struggle, just a calm, deliberate departure, as if the group believed they would return shortly. They never did. The first bodies were found near the tree line, beneath a large cedar tree. 2 of the hikers lay barefoot, wearing only underwear. Their hands were burned and scraped, as though they had attempted to climb the tree in desperation. Nearby remnants of a small fire suggested they were trying to survive, to regain warmth, to signal for help. But exposure claimed them quickly. Between the cedar tree and the tent, 3 more bodies were discovered scattered across the snow. Their positions suggested they were attempting to return to the campsite. They were better clothed than the first 2, but still inadequately protected against a cold. Hypothermia was listed as the cause of death for these 5 individuals. On paper, it seemed simple. In reality, it was anything but. Months later, as the snow began to melt, the final 4 bodies were found in a ravine deeper within the forest. What investigators discovered here shifted the case from tragic to deeply disturbing. These hikers suffered massive internal injuries. One had a crushed skull. Another had shattered ribs with damage comparable to a high-speed car crash, yet their skin showed little to no external trauma. One woman was missing her tongue, along with parts of her lips and facial tissue. Others were missing eyes. Their clothing, strangely, showed elevated levels of radiation. Hypothermia could not explain these injuries. Neither could a simple fall. The force required to cause such internal damage without external wounds raised questions no official report could answer. The Soviet investigation moved quickly and quietly. Officials concluded that the hikers died due to a compelling natural force. The case was closed. Files were sealed. discussion was discouraged. For decades, families were left without clarity, and the incident faded into whispered speculation. But mysteries do not disappear simply because they are ignored. Over the years, countless theories emerged. Avalanches were proposed, suggesting a sudden collapse of snow forced the hikers to flee. Yet the slope angle, snow conditions, and delayed burial of the tent contradicted known avalanche behavior. Military involvement was suggested, pointing to secret weapons tests in the region. Reports of glowing orange orbs in the sky that night fueled speculation about missile failures or experimental technology. But no official records confirmed such tests. Others turned to more unsettling possibilities. Infrasound, generated by wind interacting with the mountain's topography, may induce panic and paranoia in humans. Could an invisible sound have driven experienced hikers into irrational fear? Some researchers think it's possible, but unproven. Theories of violent encounters with locals, escaped prisoners, or even unknown creatures surfaced, each more controversial than the last, yet none supported by evidence at the scene. In recent years, renewed investigations attempted to bring scientific clarity. Modern researchers suggested a delayed slab avalanche, a rare phenomenon where compacted snow suddenly releases pressure hours after initial disturbance. This could explain panic, internal injuries, and the decision to flee. Yet critics argue this explanation still fails to account for radiation, missing body parts, and the calm nature of the footprints. What makes the Dyatlov Pass incident so powerful isn't any single theory. It's the way each explanation answers some questions while creating new ones. The facts refuse to align cleanly. The evidence resists closure. These were not careless thrill seekers. They were methodical, prepared, intelligent. Something forced them into a situation where logic collapsed. And whatever that force was, it left no clear signature. Today, the mountain pass bears Igor Dyatlov's name. It stands silent, frozen in time, as researchers, filmmakers, and investigators continue to debate what truly happened there. The landscape remains unchanged. The cold still bites, and the wind still carries questions across the snow. Perhaps the most disturbing aspect of this case is not how the hikers died, but how suddenly certainty vanished, how quickly order turned into chaos, how fragile human understanding becomes when faced with the unknown. We want answers because uncertainty unsettles us. Because stories like this challenge the belief that preparation guarantees safety, that nature is predictable, that every mystery can be solved. But some events exist beyond neat conclusions, and the Dyatlov Pass incident may be one of them. Whether it was nature, human error, technology, or something we still fail to recognize, one truth remains undeniable. 9 people entered the mountains. None of them came back. And more than 60 years later, the silence still hasn't explained why.